Hi there, Richard Fulmer here, and welcome to another Richard's Rock Rambles, the channel where we chat about all things rock related, whether it be classic rock, blues rock, prog rock, jazz rock, fusion, you name it, we cover it here on this channel. So I thought what we do today is just finish off with the stoner rock thing for the moment, and I was going to show you a few more bands that you might want to check out. Some pretty new, some have been around for a while, all worth checking out. Not necessarily just stoner, some of them are a bit more psychedelic rock tinge to them, classic rock, some have got a bit of blues, but all worth checking out. So the first one I want to chat to you about is probably a band with the strangest name you will ever hear for a band. They're from the UK and they call themselves Admiral Sir Cloudesley Shovel. In fact, Admiral Sir Cloudesley Shovel was a guy in the British Navy. He was an admiral in the British Navy, so there was actually such a person with a name like that. He must have been ragged like hell at school. And they've made a couple of albums. I think they've made about 3 or 4. I have the first 2. They're more of a sort of a garagey stoner rock band, very early 70s. If I have to think of another band that sounds like them, or if that they sound like, I would probably say Budgie. Very similar to Budgie in a way, but probably a little bit more rough around the edges. And that's the first album. And I think this is called Don't Hear It, Feel It. Quite a cool title. And it's a trio. There's the 3 guys at the back, as I said, from the UK. I think they started out just playing pubs and that kind of thing, and then they progressed to bigger clubs and what have you. Not a top tier band. I mean, I don't think they've made massive strides in the States or anywhere else, but they definitely have a really cool sound. Let's see if there's anything I can show you inside. It's just another shot of the guys there. I don't want to spend too much time on all these bands, so I'm just going to run through them. Mark of the Beast is a cool track. Devil's Island, Death. Red Admiral, Black Sunrise is probably the best track on this album. Heavy track. Also reminds me a bit of sort of the rawness of early Grand Funk, if you like. Almost proto-metal type. Scratching and Sniffing, I think that's a song with a strange noise of like a dog growling in the beginning of the track. The Last Run and Killer Kane. This album came out in 2012. Really worth checking out. And then the follow-up one that they did was one called Check Him Before You Wreck Him. I love the titles of the albums. And there's that strange bird character astride a motorbike. And there's the 3 guys looking very ganglandish. Very similar to the first album, same kind of style. Not very much else I can show you. There's a picture of the guys. So who's in the band? Louis Comfort, bass and vocals. Bill Darlington on drums, percussion and vocals. And Johnny Gorilla on guitar and vocals. Some interesting names. Yeah, quite a fun band to check out. Nothing pretentious about their music, nothing too involved, just good solid rock. You know, when you want something you just want to put on and crank it up, that's a band to check out. Next band I want to talk about is a band called Firebird, also from the UK, but they have got people in the band from Sweden. This first album featured Ludwig Witt, who was of course with Spiritual Beggars and Spice, the band Spice, and the RJ band, he's with them as well. Also a power trio. There we go. There's the 3 guys. Slightly different in that they have bass and organ, Leo Smee. So there's a bit of keyboard work here. Ludwig Witt, as I mentioned, on drums and percussion, and Bill Steer, guitar, vocals, and harmonica. Very much into the early sort of blues rock, early 70s sound, but a psych involved as well. I think the one guy, the Steer, he was in a band called Carcass, which was like a death metal band, so it's very different to that. I really enjoyed this album quite a bit. Meantime, Torn Down, Stranger to Himself, Bollard, One Trick Pony. That's a cool track. Some nice keyboard work on this album as well, which I always think in Hammond just fills out an album more. It just gives it a little bit of color. And this one came out in 2005, I think, or 2003, on the Music for Nations label. 2000, I beg your pardon. My eyesight's going as well as my hearing and everything else. Check this one out. A couple of years later, and this was in 2009, so this is a bit further on. I think they had a few lineup changes as well. An album called Grand Union by Firebird. Blue Flame, Jack the Lad is a cool track. Fool for You, Silent Stranger, See the Light. Slightly heavier than that first one, I think. See if I can find out. Drums and percussion, Ludwig Wicht, so he's still here. Bass, Smokovic. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. And guitar, vocals on harmonica, still Bill Steer. So there was a one change for this album. And that's just a picture of the guys live. Also very raw in your face stuff. Worth checking out. A band called Firebird. They've made, I think, about 3 or 4 other albums that I haven't managed to get just yet. I've kind of lost track of them over the years. You know, you get involved with other bands and you forget about some of these guys. Then we have a very interesting band. This is probably the strangest album I have in my collection. The album consists of one track. And that track is about 70 minutes long. It's actually over an hour, yeah. 1 hour, 3 minutes and 34 seconds. Track is called Dope Smoker. And that is the name of the album by the band Sleep. It's just a repetitive riff. It's doomy. It's full-on stoner rock. I mean, you can just imagine a guy having just smoked a huge doobie and just crashed out on his couch and stick this on. Off you go. You got to be in the mood for it because, as I said, it's basically 2 tracks. So there's a second track which is a live track. That's also about 11 minutes long. Al Cisneros on bass vocals, Matt Pike on guitar, Chris Harkis on drums. So it's also a trio. A lot of these bands are trios. Not really much I can show you inside because there's no booklet. It's a very basic CD release on the Southern Lord label. And this came out in 2012. Yeah, very different. Constant riffing. If you can imagine, Tony Iommi on speed. Then we get a very cool band from the States called The Sword. That's a really nice cover, that first one. I think this was the first album called Age of Winters. Very different vocal style, sort of high-pitched vocalist. This came out in 2006, I think. Celestial Crown is good. This is more of a doomy, also slow, but not as slow as Sleep. At least here you get a bit of variation in the tracks. See if I can show you anything inside. I think this one has a really cool poster kind of cover inside. Oh, no, it doesn't. No, it must be another one I'm thinking of. There's the guys there, Dave. You can see Trivett Winu, Kyle Shutt, J.D. Cronice, I think he's the singer, and Brian Ritchie. Interesting album. Also a band worth checking out. They haven't really changed their style much. Very slow, doomy stuff. I think they also have keyboards involved. They also have an album here from 2006. I'm missing a couple of the albums, but I've got a few. Gods of the Earth, also worth checking out. The Sundering is really good. How Heavy This Axe. Some of the tracks have got a sort of a sword and sorcery feel to them. You'll see one of the other albums has got like a space theme. So they have sort of like conceptual kind of albums. Not much to show you here apart from the lyrics. So that was Gods of the Earth by The Sword. Also done fairly well in the States. I'm not sure they're big really anywhere else. Warp Riders. This is the space one that I was talking about. You can see the glare there. And this one comes with some nice little cards. Let's see if there's anything else. Yeah, it's also just the lyrics. And the last one that I have of theirs is Apocryphon. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. That's a really cool cover. I love that cover. And that's the back. This is a bit of a different album to those. It's a lot more polished. Production is really good. And it's very sort of psychedelic feel to this album, as you can see by that picture there. A lot of all the lyrics are in here. See if it says anything at the back. So John D. Cronice, vocals, guitar, Carl Schutt on guitar, and Brian Ritchie, bass and synthesizers, and Santiago Vela III on drums and percussion. So yeah, interesting band. I like their lyrics as well. They always have some interesting lyrics to their songs. You just get the lyrics as well. There's no other pictures of the band. Definitely a band worth checking out, The Sword. And then the last band I want to chat about, also I only have one of their albums and I have it on good old vinyl. The band Earthless. And this album is called Black Heaven. And this came out quite recently. This is a 2018 release. Blew me away when I heard this. In particular, the first track. I just want to open it up and show you. This is what I love about vinyl. Get that amazing live shot there with all these sort of psychedelic backdrops. So who's in the band? Gifted by the Wind. Very long tracks. Most of the tracks that these guys do are instrumental. Lengthy instrumental with loads of searing guitar licks. So in the band, you've got Isaiah Mitchell, vocals, guitar, and effects. Mario Rubalcaba, drums, percussion, and Mike Eglinton on bass. I think Isaiah Mitchell left this band for a short time to go and join the reformed Black Crowes, which I didn't get that. I mean, Black Crowes, Earthless, totally different style, and he went there for a short, but I think he's gone back to Earthless because that didn't quite work out, which I'm not surprised about. So Gifted by the Wind, End-to-End, Electric Flame, Vault Rush on side B of the vinyl. That's a really cool track. Lovely guitar work, lots of wah-wah. If you can imagine a heavier version of, say, the Grateful Dead, because that's how long the tracks are. Very much a sort of a jam band, stoner, psychedelic band. You know, so sometimes it's difficult to put bands in particular categories and say, yes, they're this or they're that. You know, bands incorporate all sorts of styles into their music, and I think that's so cool about these bands that we're talking about. Each one is a little different. Sorry. So that's it. That's not by any means all the stoner bands. I mean, there are loads of stoner bands. There's The Quill. It's another band from Sweden. Fu Manchu. They're more of a sort of a party aspect to their music. Yeah, there's lots, you know, but I think we can cap that for the moment, and it will go into something which I'll talk about just now next time. Just as an aside and a little bit off topic, I was watching a documentary yesterday, locally made documentary called it's about the arts and the entertainment industry in this country and the hard times the guys have been having. And you know, you watch that and you realize that is their job, and their job has been taken away because of the COVID pandemic. Everything's been shut down. The clubs aren't operating. The DJs can't go and play to crowds because of crowd restrictions and what have you. The pubs are closed, so the bands can't go and play. And if that's your only source of income when it gets taken away like that, you know, it's what do you do? And it's quite sad when you watch this documentary. A lot of the guys have had issues with depression. I mean, one of the guys during this whole lockdown story, with not having work, not having an income, finds out that his wife has got cancer. So he had that on top of everything else, but he's come out all right, and I take my hat off to him. But it's really tough out there, and it doesn't only affect the guys on stage; it affects the guys who do the lighting, the manager of the venue, the people, the landlords, the people who own the venue, the people who clean up after the shows. They get affected because they don't have a job anymore. So it's like this knock-on effect. And I think in this country, the entertainment industry has taken a huge knock. Lots of places have closed, nowhere for the guys to play, and there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Nobody knows yet, when everything's going to go back to some sort of normality. So yeah, I think do yourselves a favor, and it's on YouTube. I just can't remember the name of the documentary, but it's about the entertainment industry in South Africa, and it's quite moving. And just spare a thought for the guys in the entertainment industry. I mean, obviously, people in the front lines, the doctors and nurses and what have you, that's a given. But there's a lot of people that are struggling to find work that had their jobs just taken away. 26th of March 2020, everything just shut down, and the bands, and a lot of the guys thought, okay, we'll have a little bit of a break, say 3 weeks. And then it just carried on and carried on and carried on. So yeah, hectic times out there, and hopefully everything will come right eventually, and the guys will go back to, some sort of income. And because there's nothing, you can do streaming and you can do Zoom and all the rest of it, but there's nothing like having an audience in front of you, getting that feedback from the audience. That's why you're an artist, because you feed off your audience. You need that. It's a two-way thing. And yeah, it's quite a hectic documentary. It's only about 25 minutes long, but it's worth checking out. Next time, on the next episode, we're going to have a look at one of my favorite metal bands of all time. English band from Birmingham, Judas Priest. I think what I'm going to have to do is split it into two. So I'll do the early part of their career, cap it at, say, British Steel, and then carry on after that. I have pretty much all their stuff, not everything, but I have a large amount of their albums. I've got some on vinyl, some DVDs, and some CDs. So check out one of the greats. Still going, had their ups and downs, lineup changes, but yeah, one of the best metal bands of all time, I reckon. So I'll see you guys then. Take it easy. Have a good week. Look after yourselves, and I'll catch you soon. Cheers.